Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 30th of January and we're going to deal with three very important topics which are in news. The United Nations Relief Work Agency for Palestinian Refugees. This agency is in news because USA and 8 other Western countries have decided to stop funding UNRWA. More than half of the funding of UNRWA comes from these 8 or 9 countries. Reason? Israel has alleged that some members of UNRWA were involved in the October 7 attack by Hamas on Israel. However, UNRWA has rejected these claims and it has also said that the accused people, if they have been removed or terminated from the office. One of them has died and the others have been removed. Next is attack on the USA Outpost in Jordan. This attack has been claimed by IRI, Islamic Resistance of Iraq. This group is known to be supported by Iran. Iran actually is anti-West, particularly anti-USA, and is targeting USA establishments. However, Iran has denied any involvement in these kind of attacks. There's no clear understanding about IRI as of now, but yes, it is believed, according to various think tanks in USA, that it is part of the axis of resistance which is being developed by Iran against the USA in West Asia. Next is simultaneous elections, the pros and cons. A committee under Ramnath Kovind, our ex-president, has been formed to look into the simultaneous elections possibilities. Up till 1967, we were having simultaneous elections in the country where the general elections and the state elections were committed or conducted simultaneously. Law Commission has also recommended conduction of simultaneous elections in its 2018 report. There are multiple pros like cost saving, administrative convenience, then the high tension environment or the high, I would say, possibilities of social tensions will reduce. Apart from it, governance will increase because the Netajis will be diverted towards delivering services, not always in election mode. But there are challenges like federalism will be in question, or I would say there will be difficulties in amending the constitution because various clauses have to be amended with respect to dissolution of the assemblies and parliament. So in all this, we need to find a way out how it can be done, if it is possible at all. So we will be talking about all these in this particular section. Now, the first is United Nations Relief and Work Agency for Palestinian Refugees. US and 8 other Western countries, basically they have said that we are not going to fund UNRWA. More than half of UNRWA's funding comes from these 9 countries. So UNRWA's operations will be fairly impacted. Now, the development could have severe implications for Palestinians in Gaza. 2 million Palestinians in Gaza are dependent upon UNRWA services. That would be scaled back as soon as February if the funding is not restored. Actually, UNRWA depends on the funding only. It is basically voluntary in nature. The funding is voluntary in nature, and if the funding dies out because these 9 countries are saying that they're not going to fund, then it is February, that is just 2 days from now, or any time in the month of February, this can be curtailed. So it is like this. Reason why US and 8 other countries have said that they're not going to fund, because Israel has accused some of the agency's staff members of involvement in October 7 attacks. Some of the staff members of UNRWA were involved in the October 7 attacks, where Hamas attacked Israel and it started the conflict over there. UN officials on Sunday urged countries to reconsider their decision to suspend the funding for United Nations for Palestinian Refugees, assuring that they would take strict action against any staff if found to be involved with the Hamas. But the United Nations officials have said that this decision should be reconsidered by those 9 countries. Now about UNRWA, it was formed in 1949. We know the story of uh, Israel getting formed. So as soon as Israel got formed by displacing the Arab Muslims, the Palestinians, there was this Arab-Israel war. And around 7 lakh Palestinians were forced to leave their homes in what is now Israel during the 1948 Arab-Israeli war. So it was found in the aftermath of Arab-Israeli war in 1949. Regions of operation: Gaza. Like if I draw a rough map of Israel over here, this is basically the Gaza Strip. The Israel occupied West Bank. West Bank is here in Israel, as well as Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. Lebanon is here, north. Syria is here, and Jordan is basically here, surrounding the West Bank. Countries where refugees took shelter after their expulsion. The domain, according to UNRWA's website, it runs education, health, relief and social services, microfinance and emergency assistance programs inside and outside the refugee camps over there in these regions. So, definitely, day-to-day activities which are very important for survival: education, health, relief and social services, microfinance, all these are actually undertaken by UNRWA in supporting the Palestinian refugees. UNRWA's response to the current allegations: UNRWA obviously will deny all these allegations, and it has denied all these allegations, and saying that it has no links to Hamas. In the statement, UN officials said out of 12 staff members who were accused of being involved in the attack, 9 have been terminated, 1 is confirmed dead, and the identity of 2 others is being clarified. Any UN employee involved in acts of terror will be held accountable, including through criminal prosecution, the statement added. So, they are saying that if they are found guilty, we will punish them. But the funding should not stop. If the funding stops, then the Palestinians, they will suffer. And this is actually what Israel wants. So, Chris Guinness, a former UNRWA spokesman, told Al Jazeera is basically a news agency in West Asia, that the allegations against the agency are coordinated political attacks by Israel. The Israelis have said that they cannot win the war on Gaza unless UNRWA is disbanded. So what clearer signal do you want? So this is basically UNRWA's significance. That Israel is claiming that if UNRWA is not disbanded, we will not be able to win the war, because UNRWA will keep on, I would say, supporting the Palestinians. Supporting the Palestinians on noble causes like education, healthcare and all. But yes, the narrative which has been created over here is this: key members of UNRWA were involved in the attacks by Hamas on October 7 on Israel. Now what now? So UNRWA is very crucial for the survival of people living in Gaza. During these times of crisis, so definitely they are looking towards UNRWA, the people in Palestine. But when the conflict was not there before October 7, then also UNRWA was a very much instrumental body in uplifting, or in, I would say, improving the living conditions of the Palestinians. So it is like this. Now, UNRWA is crucial for the survival of people living in Gaza, which has plunged into a humanitarian crisis after this October 7 outbreak. Agency has been the main supplier of food, water and shelter to civilians of the enclave. Now, UNRWA, however, would run out of money needed for its work within weeks if the funding isn't restored. So at least on humanitarian grounds, the Western countries should look into this. On the other hand, UNRWA should be very much vigilant that none of its staff members are involved in such kind of activities. That needs to be taken utmost care of, because if UNRWA runs out of funds, the Palestinians will run out of food. The Palestinians will run out of medical aid or healthcare provisions, which are the two basic necessities as of now. I'm not talking about education, I'm not talking about microfinance right now, but yes, food and healthcare. Those are the basic necessities right now. If the situation is restored to be normal, then education and all we'll be talking about. But yes, right now these two things are there which needs to be addressed. The next is attack on USA outpost in Jordan. So this is basically the map. Israel, this is West Bank, this is Gaza, sorry, this is West Bank over here. We just saw it through a map. This is Syria, this is Jordan. And there was this outpost over here somewhere. Okay. On the tri-junction of Jordan, Syria and Iraq. So a grouping from Iraq named as IRI has attacked this outpost of USA in a drone attack. 3 US military servicemen were killed in a drone attack on their outpost in Jordan on Sunday, marking the first time that US soldiers have died in the ongoing conflict in the Middle East or West Asia. So this is significant, that first time US soldiers have died in the ongoing conflict. Now, who attacked? Islamic Resistance of Iraq, IRI, claimed the responsibilities for the strikes. Now, the situation is getting tense and the pressure on the American government is also mounting domestically because of the electoral atmosphere over there in USA. There have been targeted attacks by opposition leaders or people like Donald Trump over there on Joe Biden, claiming him to be weak, claiming him to be passive, and maybe in the time to come you will see coordinated attacks by USA on these terrorist outfits. Now we will see how, if USA attacks, the situation can be complicated and the war can be flared up in West Asia. Why was USA stationed in Jordan? We need to know this also. Now, the strikes targeted Tower 22, a US military outpost. Outpost is what? It is a smaller version of a military base in Jordan. So I showed you where that outpost was. It was here on the tri-junction of Syria, Iraq and Jordan border. Over here, the outpost was, where the attack was carried out by IRI. The Tower 22 it is called as. Now Jordan's army, basically, now the country is bordered by, first of all, going back to the first point, the country is bordered by Israel to its west, we saw, Saudi Arabia to its southeast, Iraq to its northeast and Syria to its north. We're talking about Jordan. Now Jordan's army is one of the largest recipients of Washington's foreign military financing. Means USA is involved in military financing over here in Jordan. The kingdom has hundreds of US trainers and is one of the few regional allies that hold extensive exercise with US troops. Now, all these reasons why US troops had to be present in Jordan. But yes, the reasons are not over yet. There are more to come. Tower 22 is near the Al-Tanf garrison. Al-Tanf garrison is located in Syria. So it is on the tri-junction I showed you in the map. US troops used the garrison while fighting against the Islamic State, ISIS. In short, we call it Islamic State, which emerged amid the Syrian Civil War. So what is basically the Syrian Civil War? We'll give you a glimpse of that as well. Now, the conflict in Syria started in the early 2010s I would say. People in Syria, who were largely Sunnis, were ruled by a Shia ruler, Bashar al-Assad. There were demands of democracy also in Syria. We might have heard about the Jasmine Revolution, which plagued the West Asian part of the world, where people started demanding democracies. Many of the countries in the region are monarchies. So, Syria also, there were demands of democracy. Now, Bashar al-Assad's father ruled over Syria for a very long time, and when Bashar al-Assad took over the reins, the Syrian economy was struggling. There was a lot of inflation, lack of productivity, unemployment, everything was there. So all these factors made the Sunni majority people to retaliate against their Shia king. They wanted to remove the Shia king. And the Shia king knew that if democracy is, introduced in Syria, definitely I will not be there because Shias are in minority in Syria. On the other hand, countries like Saudi Arabia, a Sunni country, USA, Jordan, again Sunni, they were all supporting the people, the Sunni people who were revolting against their king, Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad, on the other hand, was being supported by countries like Russia, Iran. So, the conflict in Syria got intensified a lot in the 2010s. The end result, Bashar al-Assad still retains power. He has become more strong, and the people in Syria still struggling. The country overall is in shambles due to this civil war over there. And in all this, a new terrorist organization emerged, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. In the beginning, it was known as Islamic State of Iraq and Levant, ISIL, but it changed its name to ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. So this militant organization, ISIS, emerged in this period basically, 2010 onwards, and attempted to establish an Islamic caliphate amid the chaos in the region. ISIS started targeting various foreigners, means Americans or any people of foreign descent over there, whether journalists or the army men. They started beheading them. Videos of those beheadings and all became quite viral. And this was basically what USA was targeting from Jordan, ISIS. So ISIS has now, it was the operations of ISIS were quite intensified in the 2010s, but now the operations of ISIS have, watered down a bit as compared to the before situation. So this is what we needed to know about the Syrian crisis. Syrians, Sunnis majorly, attempted to dislodge the president Bashar al-Assad, a Shia ruler. Countries backing the rebels means the Syrians, the Sunnis, the US, Saudi Arabia, Jordan. Countries backing the Bashar al-Assad regime, Russia and Iran. The war went on, and today Assad has maintained his grip on power in Syria. He has come out to be stronger. He is still ruling Syria. The Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, emerged in this chaos. Now we need to know about IRI, who is claiming the attacks on this outpost of USA, Tower 22. Actually, I would say exact details are not known about IRI. There are some findings by various think tanks based in the USA. Now, in Iraq and Syria, US forces have come under repeated assault by a newly created group of Iran-backed militias known as Islamic Resistance of Iraq. It is also believed that the group is part of Axis of Resistance. Axis of Resistance is basically what? The multiple groups that Iran backs as part of its anti-Western or anti-USA stance. Hezbollah, Houthis, IRI, all these are groups which Iran backs, and all of them are against the West or the aids of West, like Israel. So those collectively, there's this term called as Axis of Resistance, and this IRI is part of this Axis of Resistance, which is basically multiple groups that Iran backs. Analysts believe that the Islamic Resistance of Iraq is a front for Iranian-backed factions within an umbrella of militias known as Hashd al-Shabi. These have become powerful military and political forces, boast tens of thousands of fighters, and are also integrated into the state. Means some of the members are part of the government as well. IRI refers to an umbrella term used to describe the operations of all Iran-backed militias in Iraq. including strikes into Syria during the October 2023 conflict between Israel and Hamas. On October 17, the group said it carried out a drone attack on Harir air base in Iraqi Kurdistan. There was a possibility of its link to a Shiite group, the Harkat Hezbollah al-Nujaba. Hezbollah, it is there in Lebanon. So, Shias, Iran-backed, all against the West or West-backed countries. So, this is what something which needs to be understood with respect to IRI. Now the last topic, simultaneous elections, pros and cons. When we talk about this simultaneous elections, so a high-level committee has now been formed under the ex-president Ramnath Kovind, and it was constituted in September 2023 to look into the issue that, can we conduct simultaneous elections again? Again? Why? Because see, till 1967, we were conducting simultaneous elections. Elections to the parliament, that is the general elections, and elections to the all state legislative assemblies were conducted at one point of time. At that time, the local governments were not there. 1991-92 only they were formed. So, elections to these two levels were being conducted simultaneously. And after that, multiple dissolutions in the central government, multiple dissolutions in the state governments actually broke this synchronization. And one nation, one election was finished. Now again, we are wanting to go towards this. There are certain benefits, that is the pros, and there are certain challenges or difficulties over there, or I would say shortcomings if we go to one nation, one election again. So in this segment, we will see all these things. Now, one nation, one elections have been recommended by multiple bodies. Election Commission of India, obviously that Election Commission of India will recommend because Election Commission of India's workload increases with, non-simultaneous elections, which the present situation is. The Law Commission has also recommended about, conducting simultaneous elections. And the HLC, that is High Level Committee right now under Ramnath Kovind, has invited responses from political parties, Law Commission and other groups on the proposal to hold simultaneous elections. Simultaneous elections for Lok Sabha, state legislative assemblies and the local bodies of all the states. Possibilities are being explored for including the local bodies also, but largely, it will be over here, Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. But yes, what's the harm in exploring possibilities for simultaneous election to all three levels? It is like this. Now, the background, during the first four general elections, 1952, 57, 62 and 67, the elections to the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies were held simultaneously. Then what happened? Due to subsequent premature dissolution of Lok Sabha on 7 occasions and premature dissolution of legislative assemblies on various occasions, the elections to the Lok Sabha and various state assemblies are held at different times. The idea of simultaneous elections have been mooted by Election Commission of India, 1982, Law Commission, 1999 and 2018. So, what have been the recommendations of the Law Commission in 2018, the latest of which we will see. Why simultaneous elections should be there? Actually, there are 4 broad reasons or 4 broad points which should be considered, as for case for conducting simultaneous elections. The first is cost. Actually, it is estimated that the cost of conducting a general election is somewhere around 4,000 crore. And, which is very much, I would say, in itself. Each state assembly election would also cost considerable amount of money according to the size of the state. So we're not going into that how much elections cost is there in every state. It differs on the size of the state. While this is the official expenditure of the government, the expenditure by parties and candidates are manifold times higher. This 4,000 crore is basically the official expenditure of the government. Government expenditure, it happens for mobilizing the electoral machinery. Election Commission of India runs campaigns, it sends personnels, it deploys forces. All these are there. So, 4,000 crore is that. Apart from 4,000 crore rupees, the election expenses done by the candidates and the political parties is way more higher than 4,000 crore. So I cannot give you an exact estimate, but yes, 10 to 15,000 crore rupees I am estimating would be there, gone in one general elections. Next is governance. Now, general elections, state elections in some state or the other, local level elections. Multiple leaders are always in election mode and they compromise on governance, they compromise on service delivery. So, one nation, one election or simultaneous election, once in 5 years, rest of the time you do your job, again come in election campaign mode, I would say 6 months before the elections, conduct the elections, all elections at one point of time, then again go for working if you are elected. This would definitely help us in improving governance. It is like this. Administrative convenience. Administrative machinery in the districts slow down during the election period with the primary focus being the conduct of elections. There are also parliamentary forces or paramilitary forces that are withdrawn from the locations in which they are posted and deployed to the concerned state for the smooth conduct of elections. Now, those areas can be compromised. Let's suppose paramilitary forces are deployed in the Naxal regions. They will be removed from there, go for conducting the elections and then come back. What if some violence happens during that time or activities happen during that time in the Naxal areas? So, that is something which is cause of concern. Social cohesion. High stake elections each year in various states result in polarizing campaigns by all parties in order to win the elections. And these polarizing campaigns have the potential to disturb the social fabric of the country. That is, if time and again it happens, so it will definitely weaken the balance in the society. So that is not required. So all these 4 points, cost, governance, administrative convenience and social cohesion, are very important for or are presenting the case for one nation, one election. Now, why simultaneous elections should not be there? That also should be understood. Conducting elections simultaneously to the Lok Sabha and all state assemblies would result in national issues overshadowing regional and state specific issues. Now, if elections are conducted at one point of time, then national issues definitely they will be pitched very hard. The national parties will be doing that. They have deeper pockets. And the local issues will be subsided below that. Those will not be there. But if elections are happening separately, national issues will be highlighted during general elections. The local issues will be highlighted during state elections happening at a separate time. So, having simultaneous elections will result in national issues overshadowing regional and state specific issues. National political parties would have a significant advantage over regional parties on account of this mechanism. This would be detrimental to the federal spirit of our country, which is declared to be a basic structure of our constitution. Elections also serve as an effective feedback mechanism for governments in power. There have been many policies that have been initiated by various central and state governments in the past due to such electoral feedback. Now, see, we are studying that why simultaneous elections should not be there. One benefit of simultaneous elections not being there is that parties get a chance to correct themselves. General elections happen. An ex-political party comes to power, ex-political party rolls out its policies. These policies are not going well. State election comes. The people can say that if you don't amend these policies because these policies are not in our favor, we will not vote for you. So, they got a feedback, the political party got a feedback from the people, they can amend. But what if elections are happening simultaneously? General elections, state elections after 5 years. General elections, state elections. This chance of correction will not be there. There have been many policies that have been initiated by various central and state governments in the past due to such electoral feedbacks. If elections are held only once in 5 years, it can affect this process. Now, having a fixed tenure of 5 years for the Lok Sabha and state assemblies will require constitutional amendments to Article 83, 85, 172 and 174 that deal with duration and dissolution of Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies. Now we are a parliamentary democracy in which we need to establish majority first in the legislative assemblies or the parliament, and once that majority is established, then we form the government. The government can be prematurely dissolved in multiple circumstances. Like first, if the party or coalition in power loses majority and no alternative government can be formed. It may also be dissolved prematurely by the Council of Ministers in power who seek an early election. Further, state legislative assemblies can also be dissolved by imposing President's rule under Article 356 of the Constitution. So all those articles in the Constitution dealing with these 3 points, that is Article 83, 85, 172, 174 and Article 356. Article 356 is with the President's rule. They need to be amended. It should not be like, 2 years down the line if dissolution happens. Dissolution can happen. We are a parliamentary democracy. Then a new government will be formed. What would be the duration of the new government which is formed after 2 years? Will it be 5 years again from now? So, one party, one election, or one state, one country, one election is gone. Simultaneous elections, I would say, phenomenon is dissolved. So here Law Commission has recommended that even after, let's suppose, 2 years, dissolution happens, the new government which will be coming into power or which will be reinstated will only be there for the remainder term, that is 3 years in this example. But constitutional amendments have to be done. That is a challenge. The 2018 recommendations of the Law Commission. What are the recommendations? 3 recommendations are there. The elections to the Lok Sabha and nearly half of the state assemblies may be clubbed together. So general elections plus half state legislative assemblies. They can be conducted at one point of time. And after 2.5 years, over here, the remaining half of state legislative assembly elections can be conducted. Then after 2.5 years, this will be repeated, general elections, because by the next 2.5 years over here, 5 years will be completed for this particular group. So this is the first recommendation. This will require curtailing or extending the tenures of existing assemblies. That will entail amendments to the constitution. Then next, the by-elections. By-elections happen in case of a death, resignation or disqualification of a legislator. So we cannot keep it a vacuum over there. So we need to conduct elections and we need to reinstate that person over there. So by-elections of members can be clubbed together and conducted once in a year. All the by-elections in the country, they will be happening once in a year. It is not like this month there, that month there. Election Commission of India is always, in that mode. The third recommendation, which is very much important, any no confidence motion in the Lok Sabha or Legislative Assembly should be mandatorily accompanied by a confidence motion. No confidence motion is basically that kind of motion which, if passed, the government has to resign. Confidence motion is when the government is formed. So any no confidence motion has to be followed by a confidence motion for the formation of an alternative government. If for any unavoidable reason the Lok Sabha or State Assembly is to be dissolved prematurely, the duration of the newly constituted house should be only for the remainder period of the original house. So let's suppose after 2 years dissolution happens. The new government over here will only be there for the remainder term. Elections have to be there. It is mandatory. Now things like these are followed in countries like South Africa, Sweden, or for that matter Germany. So this is there. And one more benefit of this kind of phenomenon is that this would act as a deterrent for MPs and MLAs pushing for premature dissolution of the House. It would instead encourage the members to explore the possibilities of forming an alternate government through feasible realignments. They won't go for dissolution. They will look for alternates over here if this situation arises. So this is basically what we need to understand with respect to this. These three recommendations of the Law Commission in 2018 were there. Okay. Let's see what or which of these are adopted. Now this article was written by a retired IAS officer in the Hindu today. So he has suggested a way forward over there. And this way forward seems logical. But will it be the only way forward with us? No. There can be other way forwards also. So what he said that the ideal middle ground may be to conduct the Lok Sabha elections in one cycle and all state assembly elections in another cycle after 2.5 years. So what he is suggesting? General elections over here. After 2.5 years, state legislative assembly elections, all states, 28 states and whichever UTs the elections are there. Then 5 years complete, general elections. 2.5 years over here. 5 years from here will be completed state legislative assembly. So in this scenario, once in 2.5 years, you will have to conduct elections. And that concern, when the state legislative assembly elections happen, the local concerns will be overshadowed by the national concerns. That will also be addressed in this situation. Because state legislative assembly elections are happening separately, general elections are happening separately. Now the rest of the recommendations with respect to formation of an alternative government in case of fall of an incumbent government, the duration of the newly constituted houses being only for the remainder period in case of a premature dissolution, the clubbing of by-elections to be held once every year may be adopted through suitable amendments. These three will have to be adopted if we need to keep this timeline intact. These three are the recommendations of the Law Commission. Now this will ensure that the major benefits of simultaneous polls are achieved without compromising on democratic and federal principles. This is the best way forward till now, which I have also personally seen. That is why I have covered this, and to give you a holistic picture about one nation, one elections or simultaneous elections. And with this, we end today's session. I will be meeting you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste. Jai Hind.